65615. These birthday offers and more exclusive items are available right now on our website at jimbakkershow.com. Go online now. Thank you for your prayers and financial support that helps keep us broadcasting around the world.
And let's go. Now, I want you to remember, you see a zoom in and things. This is not for television, what you're seeing. This was tape. This is one camera shot, one video from one camera. The other video, which was supposed to be on me, has not been found. And so in order to see it, you're going to have to see it with a little zooming in, and the picture will be a little jerky because they meant to be on the other camera at that moment in the editing process. But it's still there, and it's loud, it's clear, and I'm very excited to be able to see Ronald Reagan after all these years. I asked him about the economy.
The number one question, according to the recent Gallup poll on the America's heart and mind, and almost overwhelming, of course, is the economic problem. And I can't expect you today in these few moments to give us a complete discourse on what you would do to successfully deal with the economic problems, but we have to face those issues. Just really briefly, do you have any outline of the direction you'll go?
Yes, I believe that inflation, which is the basis of our economic problems, that and reduced productivity of our industrial machine, has been caused by government. And what government must do is become fiscally responsible. Government should take a smaller percentage of the people's earnings than it is taking. Government should not be spending beyond its means. It should balance its budget. Government should control the printing of money so that we don't have worthless paper money reducing the value of our currency all over the world. Then government at the same time should remove the shackles and the tens of thousands of unnecessary regulations that have reduced the United States from being the world's greatest industrial power to down, unable to really compete on even terms with any other industrial nation. Our rate of increased productivity, due to this kind of restriction by government, is only 1/3 what it is in Japan, half what it is in West Germany and France.
You really believe in free enterprise?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Dr. Forstchen, what do you think of what he's saying about this one part, we'll just say?
Fiscal responsibility. We're $20 trillion in debt.
Wow.
With a T.
Yeah.
Trillion.
And it just so happens that I'm married to somebody who has worked in accounting for 20 years.
So that's a lot of money.
You know, I hear a lot of people talk about leaving their children with that debt. That's not how this is going to play out. This is what happens time and time again in history. Countries get themselves out of that kind of debt with inflation, period. It's the only politically feasible way to do it. They can't tax themselves out of it. The taxes would be so harsh on people, they would be voted out of office. They can't stop the entitlements. They would be voted out of office. They can inflate the money and nobody knows. They don't connect the inflation with the politicians. And inflation eats away, just as it was in 1980, it eats away at productivity. At first, it makes things look better, and then everything gets more and more difficult to afford. Your rent goes up, your food goes up, your salary seems to stay the same. You can't go on vacation this year like you did last year. You can't have a big Christmas like you did 2 years ago. It eats it away slowly until the point, sometimes inflation gets so bad, you have a Venezuela. You have a Zimbabwe, where people know that inflation is bad and they start spending more money trying to stock up, and it starts a ball rolling downhill till eventually you're buying loaves of bread with wheelbarrows of money. It's happening in Venezuela right now. We had this problem in 1980, and Volcker, the federal chairman back then, raised the interest rates to a point that got the inflation under control. We can't do that now. If we raise interest rates, the interest on our debt is going to crush us. We wouldn't be able to pay it. We can't get out of this problem like Reagan and Volcker got us out back then. if there's ever a time to prepare, in my opinion, it is now. It is more likely.
In my heartbreak, one of the things that's shaking my heart, breaking my heart, is God literally called me through my prison years as I studied the Bible to get people to prepare. And right now, people aren't, as I said earlier, one of the programs, they are buying guns more than ever in history. And now that Trump's been elected, they've stopped buying guns because they feel like it's going to be okay. Hardly anyone is storing food anymore or doing anything to prepare. They think the Savior has come. And he hasn't, because the Savior is named Jesus Christ.
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty heavy. Let's go back to the interview and about bureaucracy. Here's Ronald Reagan.
All right, what about bureaucracy in America? There seems to be a growing bureaucracy controlling every aspect of life. In North Carolina now, we're reading where a new law is being written to control the raising of children. It seems like every time we turn around, government is coming into the church, the IRS, the FCC, the SCC, just can go on and on. If elected president, would you do something to stop this control of American life, and could you?
I sure would, and I think it can be done. You see, first of all, a government bureaucracy, once it's started, it may start with the most legitimate of purposes, and I'm sure the people are well-intentioned with these things they're doing. They find themselves saying, oh, what good we could do for the people if we had a little more money and a little more power. And so they keep promoting legislation to increase their power. But they start, a cause creates a bureaucracy. But very quickly, once created, the primary purpose of the bureaucracy becomes self-preservation. It must continue to have a cause and a reason for existing. A government program, the rest of us think of as something that is done to solve a problem, and then that government program should go away. But the people that are in the government program, they don't want it to go away. That has now become their career. And I believe it can be restricted. I think one thing, we could start with the 10th article of the Bill of Rights. The federal government, the 10th article says, shall do only those things specifically called for in the Constitution. All others shall remain with the states or with the people. Well, we just haven't been using the 10th article anymore. The federal government has usurped many functions which are not its proper function. Raising families, for example. The federal government now, federal aid to education has become federal interference in education, and now suddenly we're going to have a national cabinet-level Department of Education. Let no one be fooled. That means eventually, if they have their way, and sooner rather than later, we're going to have a national school system. Our traditional local control of schools will no longer exist. So I think a planned and orderly transfer of some of these functions back to the states and the local communities with the tax sources to pay for them is the answer to some of the great bureaucratic mess we have in Washington.
Wow.
Well, Ronald Reagan's in heaven and getting applause. What do you think about
Let's hear it
that?
for Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Professor?
What do I think?
I saw you almost shout.
I graduated with a degree in teacher education in 1972. I started teaching in 1978. I've been in the field ever since. And did you notice, this is 1979, he said, there's going to be a cabinet-level position of education. We didn't have it before, and he prophesied correctly. There will soon be a national education program, and then they're going to be forcing something called what down our throats? Common Core, national standards, taking away your power as parents. I am thrilled that the incoming president will appoint, with the advice and consent of the Senate, a Secretary of Education who is pro-voucher, what I call a parent's bill of rights. You as a parent have a right to choose your child's school, not the state jamming it down your throat.
That's right.
And I also hope she oversees the disbanding of the Department of Education and the return of our educational systems to our states and our local communities as within the 10th Amendment.
Yes.
And I don't believe in book burning, but this is one time I believe in book burning because they have rewritten history, and I think inaccurate history books ought to be dumped. I'm sorry, but they have rewritten the history of the United States of America and our godly forefathers. They won't even admit that there was even prayer in our government.
Let's talk to the history professor.
Yeah, I mean, look up books like Zinn's People's History. I think it's People's History of the United States. I just saw a big thing about a book called The Definitive History of Racism. I mean, these are the types of textbooks, lies my teachers told me. It's all coming from the left. Now, I do have one friend with a good book. That's Larry Schweikert's Patriots History of the United States. But we as parents should have the right to define the textbooks that our children have, not some bureaucrat who's a leftist in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely.
Because the average, really, most parents are not going to get involved with understanding textbooks. And it's, I guess we need to do that.
We have to take back our education system at the local level and let community standards start judging that again. And also the hiring and firing of teachers. We see in the news every single day some teacher doing some abuse. Oh, they're put on leave for 6 months. Oh, we can't fire them because they might sue us. Whatever happened to parents having the ability to interview teachers to be hired in their children's school? It used to be that way.
Wow.
And Ronald Reagan, how prophetic when he's expressing in 1979.
He's speaking to us right now, people.
Yes. And I'm going to throw it to...
And this is like a second chance warning coming from Ronald Reagan.
Part of that clip was about the nightmare of bureaucracy. Robin, what about the bureaucracy with the IRS that we've seen develop over the last 30 years?
Oh, my word. I read an article probably 10 years ago that said that the Congress and the IRS know that people use software to prepare their tax returns, so they make things so complex that you have to use a computer to prepare your tax return. It's crazy. It's crazy. The amount of just the IRC Internal Revenue Code is like this thick, and the regulations that the IRS issues are, I couldn't even describe how much they are. There are professionals that prepare tax returns that know that code 10 times better than the IRS agents themselves. They really don't. And the IRS is only a piece of regulation that strangles productivity. You've got the EPA.
Is that why they're all so scared what Trump will do if he gets in there and starts cleaning house? Because we don't need that bureaucracy. We really don't.
It's their career.
I've heard a lot of intelligent people actually believe we don't even need the IRS, that there's other ways of taxing that would be a simple form. Nobody has to even fill out all the paper. Wouldn't that be a blessing?
Can I give a business example? Tom, our friend Tom McMurray.
Yes.
This goes to a friend who owns a little shop in Black Mountain, North Carolina. He's a tobacconist. I smoke a pipe.
Oh, no.
Yes, I do. And he does a special blend for me. It's now almost impossible for me to get the little special blend. This is a little shop in Black Mountain, North Carolina. He received 499 pages of regulation from the EPA banning him from mixing tobacco unless he's certified by the EPA.
As a manufacturer.
As a manufacturer, it has essentially put him out of business. Now, I bet in our audience here, we have people running businesses that suddenly get notices from the government about this regulation or that. But think of that. A guy running a tobacco shop in Black Mountain has essentially been driven out of business by the federal government because he has to comply with 499 pages of regulation on how to mix tobacco.
I know a businessman in Missouri who, if he complied with one agency's rules, he was breaking the rules of a different agency.
Oh, the catch-22.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who we could go on for days about Ronald Reagan's prophecies.
As we leave the air today, if you were telling somebody who's not really prepping and hasn't started, what's the basics that you would say, get started, do these things, get going today?
Could you hand that bottle to me, please? Start with this. The most fundamental thing every prepper needs is clean water. This ministry provides these types of remarkable filters that could literally save your life. Let's go down to Maslow's hierarchy of need. We'll still have supposedly clean air. You need clean water, food. Start with, Jerry, isn't there like a 50-day pack of food, a 50-day container?
50-day, yeah.
We had the 50-day
Just one of those.
right here.
That means
We have
50 meals or 10 days for 5 people.
That's right.
I would start right
No,
with
but that one right there, this is the one that I think is the most amazing.
That's about
For
$1.37.
$77,
Yeah.
Yes.
you're getting 150 meals of food for $77.
Yeah, $1.40 a day
To
feed-
stay
yeah.
alive, and it's our best survival food. And it would be something if somebody was interested in maybe going with the 7 years or something like that, but you just want to try it out. Order that one and eat some of it. Just try it.
Very important point.
Right.
Try it out.
I dare you.
Oh, it just
That
looks
is
so
the
good.
18 different recipes in there. So many have some, nobody has 18. Okay.
This is Lori's new favorite.
Mama Lori, yeah.
Oh,
yes,
boy.
her
But
speaker.
what it has for
Oh, I love this little
$77,
speaker.
you have the speaker.
Yes. I love
What do you call
this,
that?
Jerry
Super-
Jones.
It's
Solar
our Hex Bluetooth
Yes.
speaker. It's got an FM radio in it.
Right.
It's got a little, I call it a halo light if you
Yes,
hit that button
yes.
one time.
Right.
And just give you a little bit of
talking.
indirect soft light. And then if you hit it
Oh, there it
again,
is.
there's
Uh-huh.
a spotlight that'll stick out on the side.
Sorry.
Oh!
Sorry, guys.
You hit me with
I'm
it.
sorry.
And then there's a mode where you go into programming it to your your phone,
Right, which is
to
your
get
Bluetooth.
into your iTunes and
Yes,
things like that.
right.
And then you hit the button again, and it picks up FM radio signal.
Yes.
So
Right.
Now, are you giving this flashlight with it?
we
too?
are, Pastor. This is not only a solar-powered rechargeable unit. You get a USB cable with it,
Right.
but also, if that runs out of juice, and you also have your solar flashlight,
Right.
but you just disconnect the end, hook them together, and you can charge right across to your speaker.
Right.
We marked down just for this special time
Yeah.
the new and improved 440-watt generator.
Right.
It